South Korea heads to the elections on June 3rd, and this time it's just not about who's winning, it's about who's walking away from each other at the ballot box. Young South Korean women are expected to punish the ruling conservatives, leading a backlash after months of political chaos. But the young men, they are going the opposite direction, and they are not alone. Across democracies worldwide, a stark gender divide is opening up in Gen Z politics. According to a report by news agency Reuters, young men are increasingly backing right-wing parties and young women are leaning left. What once felt like a generational tide for progressives is now splitting in two. In election after election, from Asia to Europe to North America, one thing is becoming clear. The young men are angry and they are heading to the right. In its report, Reuters found several first-time South Korean voters backing right-wing Reform Party contestant. Lee Jong-sok, he has been described as an anti-feminist contestant in the upcoming polls, as he has promised to shut down South Korea's Ministry of Gender Equality. But Lee Jong-suk is not the story. It is the young male voters who say that they will vote for him. For young South Korean men, there's a resentment that runs deep. For example, South Korea's compulsory military service, it is required only for men. The young male voters say that at the prime of the youth, they are pulled away from life, from jobs, from education. Meanwhile, female peers don't have to do that. They ask, how is that fair?
What makes me angry about the society is the fact that only men are required to serve in the military. As a young man, I find this to be one of the most unfair realities of living in Korea. At the prime of their youth, at 21 or 22 years old, young men, unlike their female peers, are unable to fully engage in various activities in society because they have to serve 18 months in the military.
Well, that frustration is turning into political fuel for the young men. According to a recent Gallup Korea poll, nearly 30% of men aged 18 and 29 plan to vote for the Reform Party, while only 3% of women said the same. More than half of young South Korean men support conservative parties. Meanwhile, nearly half the young women are rooting for the liberal Democratic contestant. The gap, it narrows with age. But among Gen Z, the split is a wide chasm. It's not just about military service. According to political economist Sean Lee, many young men feel cornered, unable to land good jobs or buy homes or start families as well. Take a listen.
Women are also facing huge competition for a good job and all the rest. But one difference here is that if you look at young men, when they compare their advances in education and in the labor market, they can see clearly that they have enjoyed more privileges, they have made more progress than their mother's generation. Whereas young men do not see that way, and that is not the case. They are struggling ever more than their father's generation.
And well, they are blaming feminism for that, according to the report. With barely any immigration to scapegoat in South Korea, these young men are turning their resentment towards women, accusing them of unfair advantages in hiring and workplace policies. But here's the thing. This trend isn't limited to Korea. In France, young men overwhelmingly backed Marine Le Pen's far-right party last year. In the UK, Gen Z men are more likely than women to vote Conservative and more likely to be unemployed or out of school. Across the West, immigration and diversity policies are the new battlegrounds. Angry young men see them as threats to the future. Even in Germany's February election, the far-right AfD surged, winning over 27% of male voters aged 18 to 24. Young women, meanwhile, ran the other way. 35% young German women backed the far-right left Linke Party. The difference in votes according to gender was only a few percentage points, except when it came to voting for the AfD. The gender gap between men and women voting for the AfD was 7%. The gender difference for the other parties was only 2 to 3%. It's not just Gen Z, even millennials now in their 30s and early 40s are also showing signs of political fracture. In Canada, conservative support increased among men aged 35 and 54 in recent elections. For many, it's a response to economic frustration and a growing relief that the system just isn't working for them. According to pollsters, men at this age are reaching perhaps a breaking point. Social media has only amplified the rage. Canadian pollster Nick Nanos described it as democracy's angry young men symptom. And this is especially evident in regions which has been hit hard by the decline of blue-collar jobs. In the US, during President Donald Trump's 2024 campaign, he was able to win over young white and Hispanic men. But it alienated the young women. Roughly half of young men voted Trump, 61% of young women voted Kamala Harris, and young black voters, regardless of gender, overwhelmingly chose Harris and not Trump. That was about America. What about Australia, where voting is compulsory? The same gender war hasn't taken hold yet. Experts say compulsory voting may be acting as a kind of equalizer, diluting the extremes. But the big question remains, how does this divide get resolved? According to pollsters, it will not happen until governments tackle the root causes, which are unaffordable housing, unstable jobs, and a looming mental health crisis among young men. Because beneath this anger is something more fragile, a generation that feels betrayed by the system, by the economy, and increasingly by each other. And if they stop talking, the consequences could be bigger than just a few elections. They'll be the cost of a future where the two sides never learned how to agree on anything.